Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Subscription Scaled. I'm your host, Nick Fredrick. With me today, we have a very esteemed guest, Vik Mehta, who is the head of sales at Velocity Logic. Vik, thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, why don't we just start by you giving a background of yourself to our listeners, what you do at Velocity Logic, and just some general background on yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Vik Mehta. I am the head of sales for Velocity Logic. We are a loyalty technology company and primarily focused in the energy fuel space. Spent a lot of time over the years with some of the major oils and C-store operators trying to help them grow their business. So a lot of our time is working with them and figuring out different ways to kind of attract customers, retain, all those types of things.
Fun. So it's spent a good bit of a good stint at one of the major oils yourself.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time at BP, working on card negotiations as well as technology and loyalty. So have a good amount of background on kind of the major oil view and as of late with Velocity, I've spent a lot more time kind of at an operator or local level trying to understand kind of how franchisees and operators work their business model.
Interesting. Well, I'm very excited about our main topic today, subscription loyalty. Neither one of those are of course new concepts. Both have been around for decades, but I think what we're starting to see in the marketplace is the convergence of those two concepts. So let's maybe start with defining it. What does that mean to you as that new idea? Not really new idea, but together a new idea is coming into the market.
Yeah. So me sitting, at Velocity as a loyalty provider, the way I think of subscription is basically the idea that I'm providing some value exchange to a customer, and that customer is willing to pay for it, and they're willing to pay for it in a different channel or different way that maybe they would kind of in historically. And we see that with other brands and other businesses. But in my space, it's very much so, okay, what's that exchange look like? And really what's that worth to a customer? That's kind of how we view subscription in the loyalty space.
One of the things that, so I've been doing subscription for almost 20 years now. And, going back into when I first got into it, a lot of the subscription programs that were out there were kind of what I would just call set it and forget it, right? You were trying to acquire a customer, kind of hope that they, to a certain degree, forgot about the product and would remain as a customer as long as they could, right? Loyalty, on the other hand, was always predicated on getting a customer to come back, right? Get that customer to keep coming back in the door, keep transacting with you, continue delivering value and rewarding them for that value.
Right.
I think in the past, probably several years for sure, subscription has turned that on its head a little bit and is really looking for how can I continuously engage with my customer to continuously demonstrate value and retain them that way, which is fantastic for our industry. So in a way, it's pivoting to what loyalty has always been trying to do, and that is engage with your customer. So these two streams coming together is what I think it's really all about.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have a good product, you got to have a good service that's building loyalty, and you're building kind of this model where customers are coming back continuously, and which is ultimately, like you said, what loyalty is trying to do. And when we think about it, when we look at subscription programs, we really today, we want to look at kind of segmenting our customers, segmenting what type of customer can take advantage of those types of things, and then engage them with some type of product or service. And I think the other thing that we see is, it's not a one-to-one thing, not a one-to-one item, especially on the loyalty side of the house. It's yes, we're going to give you a product or service, but we probably need to give you a lot of other things to make sure that you continuously be engaged. You feel like you're getting more than kind of what you're putting into this, and really make sure that you're happy and want to participate. Or maybe historically the set it forget it model was you're buying a product or service and that's really all you're going to get, and that's it. And so today I think we'll probably see that more. I think in my space, retailers are starting to understand that. But I think we'll start to see them try to move, yes, let's focus on a product or service, but let's bring a lot of other advantages and other pieces into the pie.
So I want to dig into that some more, but before we do that, what do you think are some of the foundational things that those that are focused on subscription programs can learn from loyalty? If you think about, okay, our new focus in subscription is engagement and continuously delivering value. That's been largely a focus of loyalty programs for a long time. So what are some key concepts there that those that are just focused in subscription can take away from loyalty?
Yeah, I mean, I think, loyalty, and when we have this conversation all the time with our retailers, when we look at ourselves as we are a tool set, right? We are a provider that really can open up all the data around a business, around their consumers, and what those consumers are doing from the day that they started, participating through their journey as a customer to hopefully never the end, but potentially to the end. As a subscription organization, from a loyalty perspective, there's so much insight that you can gain about a customer that you can begin to tweak what subscription may need to look like for specific customers, right? How it's not a one size fits all. And there are different ways to engage those customers, not only by what you're providing, but how you communicate with them. What are you providing? There's a whole kind of list of things that we think about when we're trying to engage our customers that can be applied in the subscription space. And as a loyalty provider, we have access to the communication with those consumers, but also just the data.
So let's turn that on its head for a second. What do you think loyalty programs can learn from subscription? And I think most specifically, what incremental value is needed in order to get a consumer to say, I'm willing to pay for this loyalty program?
Right. I think what I try to preach to our retailers and customers is that, to get, this isn't a gimmick anymore. The idea of buy, right. There has to be value, to the customer to participate. When you look at, Spotify, or you look at Amazon or Netflix, or you look at Peloton as a newer one, there's a true value exchange that's going on and that's what they're capitalizing on, right? The suppliers or the companies are really taking advantage of that, of having something of value. So when we talk to retailers and we talk about this idea, it's not just, hey, let's go run a coffee program. Sure, you can run a coffee program and that's great, but there's got to be more. There's got to be more. You can't it's not a copy paste type model. And you got to look at these other organizations that have taken kind of subscription services into their business model and realize that you got to bring a lot more to the table than just a simple commodity. It's the commodity plus.
Right. So how might that manifest it? Maybe stick with your coffee cup example or look at a different one, but what are some other things to think about there?
Yeah. I mean, you think about, you think of the old days or kind of the traditional loyalty models of premium members, VIP members, additional value. You're basically trying to tell this individual or this member that they're a special person. And with that, they are going to get other benefits. Maybe it's a special maybe it's special discounts that are only allotted to them. Maybe it's additional, I'm in the fuel space. So maybe there's fuel that's tied to it in addition to kind of the traditional coffee kind of product, if you will. So when we look at subscription, it's okay, cool, that's great. You're going to do coffee, but what else am I giving you? Am I giving you, perks, within the organization, within kind of the retail setting on a daily basis, monthly basis? Obviously, we got to look at the cost benefit of everything and all this, but that's the type of tangible value we want to give the customer, not only products and services, but also, surveys and getting their feedback and making them part of the organization in terms of the loyalty program or subscription to make them feel they're more than just a buyer or customer.
Right. They're special in some way, right? They're this VIP member who gets things that others don't. a lot of people are willing to pay for those types of experiences, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would be, again, now that you look in the data and you look at what customers are doing and how much they're willing to spend at a retailer, especially at a, at a fuel retailer, and and kind of what they're purchasing. There are a lot of people that spend a significant amount of money in the C-store space, specifically, and they're looking to be taken care of, right? They're wanting the opportunity to participate. It's really about identifying those customers, which is what a loyalty solution can do, and then looking at their spend, seeing what else they're doing, and start rewarding them, giving them surprises, giving them additional value. Make that something that's tied to, a basic commodity type subscription.
So one of the things that I've noticed is the evolution of what a C-store even is, right, has changed pretty dramatically. Used to think about it typically as, a limited 500 square foot building that sells roller dogs and Cokes, right? That sort of thing. And now you see in Texas some of these, convenience stores that literally span one exit all the way down to the next one. I remember driving by one and being like, does this thing ever end? Right? So it's basically a Walmart attached to a gas station. So because of that, and there's still a lot of the small guys too, it has to open up new opportunities to think about programs that are beyond just coffee or maybe even car wash, right?
Absolutely.
And talk about that, and maybe even thinking about partnerships, right? With others that are ancillary. Of course, grocery is the one that comes to mind, but there's certainly other things as well that kind of make sense in that space.
Yeah, I mean, we call it smokes and Cokes as the traditional kind of old school model. But yes, we think about it too in Texas. You have grocers, grocery in there. You have fresh food. You basically have a restaurant in there, and the two pieces or tangents, if you will, that are somewhat complementary. We talk about grocery. We talk about order ahead, delivery, all these types of, especially with COVID, a lot of these retailers are thinking about, how do we do curbside? How do we do some of these other pieces, because they've kind of moved into kind of the food aspect of their place. So yes, you're right. How do we get people to sign up for delivery? How do we sign up for, different types of, grocer or food? When I was at BP, we talked about things around, Amazon deliveries and having, lockers and things like that, where, you could pay for having the ability to pick up stuff, at your local gas station. And so, all those ideas start to come to fruition because of the growth of, what a C-store really is today.
Yeah. That's not to say that loyalty coalitions can't be without their struggles, right? We've seen certainly those come and go, plenty probably being one of the more prominent ones of the past few years that we've seen happen. So how can you avoid those kind of pitfalls, especially when you start talking about going outside of your immediate ecosystem and locking in with other partners?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen after, and partly why Coalition failed and has failed, primarily I blame it on, I blame it on humans. Everyone's got an ego. Everyone's a big brand, and everybody wants, the bigger slice, and that causes issues. One-to-one partnerships is what we have seen significantly grow over the last few years, because it's a lot easier to have a simple kind of relationship with two brands. And that's really, we were on the phone with, a bank, a financial institution, and a fuel partner. And really that type of conversation was very much open on, hey, what can we do with each other? How can we work with each other, both on financial services, as well as, obviously fuel being a beautiful place from a redemption standpoint. But, so I do think, one of the challenges that we can kind of get away from with partnerships is really being open and honest about what each are trying to get out of the situation, and figure out what the right economics are and what the future is. I mean, we know, especially being in the fuel space, being a fuel partner with any type of other brand is a win for everybody. with the frequency of someone like fuel or grocer.
Yeah.
That's kind of the holy grail when it comes to any type of program.
Right.
So knowing that there are ways where two brands can come together and work with each other on short-term or long-term opportunities. Again, it's really about kind of laying your guard down, letting your guard down a little bit, and having some trust in the relationship.
Well, and being creative, right? And
Yeah.
I think probably some of the listeners right now are coming from a subscription background where they're like, well, I'm a purely online digital service. How does this have anything to do with how could there ever be a play here with a C-store operator or anything like that? I mean, how can they think creatively there?
Yeah, I mean, what I would tell anyone who's in the subscription space and thinking about partnerships is, your customer buys gas. Your customer goes into a C-store and has some sense of loyalty or some preferred store that they want to go to. And there is reason to believe that you can connect those consumers and bring more value than what you're doing today. And that's really the conversation we have with any type of retailer or brand, be it subscription. When we think about loyalty and we think about redemption, we look at our consumers and we know that they may want to leverage their currency for, let's say a Spotify membership, or maybe a Prime membership. Why not allow consumers to redeem those currencies for, services that they, can take advantage of? And there's a beautiful opportunity there. Again, one of the things that we know is today and in the future is consumer choice. We would love consumers to redeem at the specific store, but we also want loyalty with that customer. And if they're willing, if they want to go exchange that value for, being part of a subscription model for some other business, why not? Why not? Let's give them what they want.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was going to be one of my questions here. Thinking about points as currency. So I get asked all the time, especially in the US, but abroad as well, how can I reach more consumers, specifically through offering alternative payments, right? The alternative payments is that big buzzword that everybody loves, and especially in the US, so few of them really make sense, at least at this point. So credit card still rules the roost, and then ACH, and there's some PayPal and wallets and things like that behind it. But for a subscription company who's maybe looking at other ways to pay for things, do points make sense? I mean, you were touching on it there. It certainly can, but it seems like that could be a tough place to break into. So how should they think about it? How should they go about it?
I will tell you today, one of the things that we witnessed, during the pandemic was, a significant challenge for redemption of points. And a lot of, especially since credit cards kind of ruled the true, mass of currency, large redemptions of travel, if you will, which is the mainstay, was significantly hit. That created opportunities that I think will stay, where subscription type businesses that want to allow alternative currencies can start to get in. What I think we'll see is consumers, especially the younger generation, they're going to want, again, choice on how they pay for the services that they can rent, that they want to use. Mm-hmm. And you leveraging points, specifically in talking about points, to burn those for services that they want to take advantage of, is really incumbent on the issuers or the folks that own the reward programs, to cater to their members, because their members are taking, we know subscription is taking a significant foothold in this economy, depending on, from Peloton to shaving to you name it, food, wellness, it's everywhere.
Right.
And so allowing consumers to take advantage of that is almost could be a competitive advantage for issuers in the space, because you're really starting to cater to a segment of consumers that are not just going to go buy travel. They want to leverage that currency for their daily life. Yeah. And that's a huge opportunity.
Well, this is an opportune time to get consumers to think about redemption in a different way, right? You're right. Travel and gift cards have pretty much been the primary way of redeeming points, especially non-fuel points, for a long period of time. But this now you've got consumers sitting at home, don't know when and if they're going to travel again. I've got all these points accumulated. Yeah, I can go get my Amazon gift card, but there's other ways to think about this, right?
So I think about it, and as it's again, it's a financial world, so there's got to be value for the issuers to participate or do something like this. But from a subscription business perspective, if they're listening, I would tell them, this is your opportunity to get in and take advantage, because you have a foothold, on the consumer side. You have demand, and the issuers or folks that have point loyalty programs are really looking for ways to provide value to that consumer. And again, consumer choice is a big deal, and so if you can get yourself in there to allow for that, I think that's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. Let's talk about bundling for a minute. We've certainly seen it in the subscription space where several subscription providers, or even a single one with multiple products, will put things together and say, okay, you can get the discount by putting these things together. So, the Hulu, Disney, ESPN bundle, right? That sort of concept. Is there a play here for a loyalty program and a typical subscription product to come together in a bundling way, where you can maybe put a couple of things together that might not seem to go together, get the customer to want to pay the incentive for the typical subscription product, but then automatically get them into a loyalty program at the same time?
Yeah. I mean, I think of, I think Spotify did like a Hulu kind of membership. So you had, streaming music and streaming video as an example, and they basically connected the two together. I mean, they're similar in that sense, but again, two different sides. So the answer is yes. I mean, it goes down to that consumer and that segmentation of what that consumer does. Again, we know they participate in loyalty and they participate in fuel. We don't necessarily need to connect, the brands. We need to connect the consumer.
Yeah, right.
And I think if we can learn to think about it from that standpoint, again, put yourself in the consumer's eyes, and what are they akin to? We can start to bundle things. We can start to bundle different brands, different subscriptions with automatically enrolled in loyalty plus some additional value. Especially when you start thinking about the fact that C-stores specifically, or loyalty providers, or retailers, are growing their offering. They realize they have to grow kind of their core products. So as that happens, you can offer some more, variety of products and services, and you can bundle that in to some subscription services.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems that as you're talking, that I think that this kind of solves for, that is a big challenge for everybody, but especially the loyalty space, is identity management, right? Yeah. Getting to know who this customer actually is. It's real easy to get a phone number, right? And say, join this loyalty program just by typing in your phone number. Further figuring out who that person actually is, getting them to take the next step of registration, has always been a challenge. You've got all of these unknown customers out there that might be accumulating points, but to be able to communicate with them and to get them coming back, that's the challenge. And a lot of subscription providers in their sign-up flow, when you're gathering a payment method, are able to get quite a bit of demographic information. So could that be one of the major problems that this helps solve for?
Yeah, I mean, you can start to share and take it and really help each other, and let that, from a demographic perspective, the subscription provider can really get a sense of what this consumer is, and the value they have, and being able to partner with those loyalty providers that can't really get the customer to that next phase, right? It's definitely, we look at it all the time around, active rate of our consumers in loyalty programs, people that, or people that have gone through sign up but didn't complete, or people that have gone through sign up but haven't really participated. And what do we got to do to kind of bring them over the edge? And, there's definitely an opportunity to think about, as a subscription services organization, the data that you have, can you help kind of push those guys over by providing additional services? can you give, that consumer that additional benefit to make them participate in loyalty?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think one of the things that a lot of digital companies have done well, and Uber's the example that always comes to my mind, is once they've got that customer registered and get a payment method on file, they push all of that into the background, right? You get into the car, you get out of the car, your card is charged, you're good to go. You don't really have to think about it. So when two organizations can come together, especially a subscription and loyalty, and kind of leverage that information, it might even be a card on file. I think that unlocks some pretty powerful ways to engage with the customer, because you've made a commercial exchange, a purchase, that much easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, you're right. I mean, if you think about a lot of the subscription or the digital organizations that are out there doing subscription services, the experience is phenomenal. Right. And still we have the challenge of the kind of retail experience and the challenges that exist there from, what that looks like. So if you can move to a good example of card on file and really try to enhance that experience for the customer, for convenience, you're going to give the customer another reason to participate and get engaged in your program. Yeah. We see it, we see it even on the mobile side for fuel, that, slowly we're starting to see customers get around to, okay, this is a better experience. I don't have to get out of the car anymore. I can do certain things. There's additional value. Some of those types of experiences, if you can make it easier for the customer, they're going to be more apt to kind of come back.
Right. So as it relates specifically to retail fuels, there's a few out there who are starting to experiment with these models, and not frankly all that many yet, that are looking at paid loyalty programs or offering some sort of premium service to their recurring customers. How big of an opportunity do you see this to be? Do you think 5 years from now, everybody's going to have a paid program, or will it be select brands, or maybe only those that have certain market penetration? Is it going to make sense? Where do you see it going?
I think it becomes select brands that have a broader offering, because consumers, in my mind, I believe consumers, it's not going to be a one-to-one thing. This will always be a one-to-many, meaning you're going to offer a service and you're going to need to provide other benefits to consumers. Mm-hmm. So brands that have that capability will be able to get more involved on the subscription side. Do I think it's a huge opportunity? I do, because, sitting at the loyalty side of the house, this is a great way to engage more with the customers, right? Yeah. As a loyalty provider, I'm looking at subscriptions and say, wow, we're going to be able to we're really going to give value to a customer. They're going to participate in a subscription model. This is going to be our loyal list. This is going to be our best customer. Yeah. And so when we think about it from that perspective, a lot of brands that have that capability will definitely want to participate.
So what are some of the things that running a subscription program or pitfalls that you might run into, do you think those that have operated loyalty programs aren't prepared for? Things they haven't thought about? Just if you can think of any, what are a couple of those?
Yeah, so if you're talking about it from a retail lens, starting a subscription company,
sure, or operational and technology lens as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we have seen on the subscription side is, or what we want to know is, what else is this customer doing? So now that we are going to engage in subscription, or if we want to participate in subscription, in our program, we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place to understand what that customer is. What else are they doing? What are they buying? As much as we can get on that customer, so that when we think about what else we're going to provide that customer, it's segmented and it's valuable for that customer. Right. But that's easy. That's easier said than done, right? It's not only having the infrastructure to know it, but it's also then to be able to communicate it and have the flexibility to provide that kind of nuanced value to those customers. So when I think of, this space of getting into subscription, yes, you're going to want to have kind of a core offering in the subscription space, depending on what that service is going to be. But when you think about the ancillary services or value that you want to provide, I think you're going to want to get targeted. I think you're going to want to provide those, and that's going to take the ability to ingest, and ingest that data and be able to execute on that data with the customer. And that could be a pitfall that companies get into.
Yeah. If I could tag on to that myself, I think one thing that I've already seen, with a loyalty program, if your end customer doesn't want it anymore, they just stop engaging with it, right? There's no real cancel button. There's no calling somebody up or sending an email saying, I don't want this anymore. They just kind of go away, right? And it costs a lot to acquire a customer for both sides, for loyalty or subscription. But when you got somebody paying for it, you want to keep them as much as you can. So thinking through those logistics of how am I going to handle customer cancellations, both voluntary and involuntary, to minimize those as best you can, to keep those hard-earned customers is one you really got to think through.
I think the other thing I would say, just to add on from what you said is brick and mortar technology, point of sales, all of this is, it's always the Wild West, right? It's always a question of acceptance and making sure things work the way they're supposed to. And, when we think about customer service, being able to, try to prevent it as much as possible, but having plans to deal with issues that occur if, customers aren't able to get the benefit, how we handle that. When we talk about, these retailers, we're talking, 6,000-7,000 sites, potentially. So, dealing with kind of issues that occur in real time is something that they're going to have to think about, and being able to manage that.
Yeah. So probably if there's any listening right now, in the back of their minds is, I've got 1,000 things to think about. I'm trying to stock Twinkies. You're telling me I need to go set up a loyalty program or a subscription program. I have no idea how to do that. So what should they do?
That's right. It's a big undertaking. I will say the good news is if you're already in loyalty and you sort of dealing with the everyday issues of kind of technology challenges and how you handle that type of stuff, subscription services and providing additional value should really be an added layer, but making sure that your staff knows, and you're not talking about, you're depending on the model, it could be franchisees, and then ultimately kind of your customer service staff being able to handle it. Those are big things that you got to be able to make sure you can manage.
Definitely. Well, we're about out of time here. And I think in reality, Vik, we've only scratched the surface of some of these topics and could go a lot further. So I think at some point down the road, we will do another episode and maybe get into some of these topics, a little bit deeper, certainly once we get, some feedback on this episode. But I just want to say thank you for this. This has been a lot of great information, a lot of great content. If any of the listeners want to get a hold of you and have a deeper discussion about it, how would they go about that?
Yeah, you can just email me at Vik, VIK, at velocitylogicgroup.com and, or check us out at velocitylogicgroup.com as well. And more than happy to talk about loyalty and subscription, any of those types of services.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for coming on, Vik.
Yep. Thank you. Great.